Thanks so much for joining us this morning. Good morning. I'm Susan Demas, the executive editor here at Lincoln Square. And with me today is my good friend, Jeff Timmer, who runs the Lincoln Project. And he is a fellow Michigander. So looking forward to this continued Michigan takeover of the Lincoln Square Lincoln Project properties.
The mitten access. Yes, there we go.
The
Yeah,
mitten accent
yeah.
right there.
I guess just kind of a crazy time. So often this time of year, especially as school is starting, summer is ending. You don't have a lot of political news. People are focused elsewhere. Except now we get this constant torrent fire hose coming from Trump world, and there's so much going on. Wow.
Yeah, it's exhausting. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
we don't get a summer break from any of the craziness. I wanted to start with Trump forcing Intel, the chip maker, to give the government a 10% stake. And the headline on this from Reuters is U.S. to take 10% equity stake in Intel in Trump's latest corporate move. But Jeff, you're a former longtime Republican. So this is not a corporate move. This is a communist move, right?
I've been doing a lot of thinking about that. Yes, that's the first reaction. I've seen everybody's reaction on Twitter. The especially the constant whinging from the Republicans, the far right, over the last few years. Anything is socialist. Everything that doesn't adhere to their authoritarian Trump-centric view of the world means it's socialist and communist and takeover. But this really isn't. I mean, there's the horseshoe theory where the far left and far right, kind of meet. And in a lot of ways they do. But this is very when you think about authoritarian fascism, the Mussolini, the Francos, the Pinochets. This is what it looks like. I mean, it's
Hmm.
rooted in nationalism, jingoistic bullshit, ethnocentrism, order, anti-immigration, xenophobia. That's a commonality through this all along. But in the far right systems that I've mentioned here, there's a state-controlled capitalism or kind of corporate alliances with whether it was Krupp and Volkswagen and BMW in Germany, or the tools of industry, the levers of industry in Italy or Spain or Chile. That's what we're seeing here. This kind of uh, uh, extortion in work here. Trump says to Intel, "Nice company you got there. Be a shame if something happened to it." And the next thing he's on Twitter or True Social earlier this month talking about what a loser Intel's CEO is. And suddenly Intel has this great CEO because he's paying a vig to the big guy.
Right.
He's kicking some upstairs, and so that's what we're seeing here. Is this? It's this classic far right fascist. This is fascist. There's going to be a day where we have a declaration. The United States is now authoritarian fascist. It happens piece by piece. It happens with events like this, whether it's NVIDIA kicking back, a share to get a deal with China, whether it's Apple getting some trade sanction or barriers lifted in order for them to uh, appease the government,
Yeah,
get
coming with
something.
Tim Cook in the Oval Office bringing a
Yeah,
gold iPhone.
yeah, I mean, the difference between whether it's Mussolini or Franco or Pinochet is we have this kind of gibbering, addled oaf who's in charge of it here. But the Stephen Millers and the Russell Voigts and all those other people are far more competent and lucid than Trump is. But
Right.
this is how it happens. There's not a day where it happens and the next day everything changes. It happens piece by piece, and it's been happening. It's not, can it happen here? It is happening here. It's, what are we gonna do about it? How far are we gonna let it go? How far are they gonna push it? And what is gonna happen uh, to stop it?
Right. And I mean, this is just part of the long trajectory that started in Trump's first term and is now explicit, where he expects for him and his associates to get kickbacks off of the government. I mean, this is a guy who has a merch store in the Oval Office that he shows off. Everything is for sale. And with the way these deals are structured, the MP materials deal with the Pentagon, I mean, it all seems designed so that Trump and his loyalists can get a cut of everything, and it's all explicit. But I am curious, Jeff, because you did come up in the Republican Party. You know all of your friends. You know the messaging has always been about the free market. I mean, the end result here is that the ultimate far right government that Trump is crafting is not about the free market. It's about corruption. It's about a fascist authoritarian state, right?
Yeah. Well, it is, and this exposes the Republicans, as our good friend here on Lincoln Square and Lincoln Project, Stuart Stevens, wrote in his book, the "It Was All a Lie." Trump didn't change the Republican Party or those in it. He revealed them for what they truly stand for, and the people who spent their careers talking about free market economies, capitalism, fiscal responsibility, lower taxes, less government, lower spending, it was all a lie. They're the ones who should be pushing back on this, and they are silent because, one, they get to keep and amass more power. They get to keep their jobs, but two, they are ginormous chicken shits who are afraid of Donald Trump. And this is he is he is compromised or uh, uh, brought to heel the establishment fiscal wing, the free market wing of the Republican Party, where they are just silent on anything that Trump does. If Trump does it, it's okay. And these are people who it's not just okay. The Republicans accept it when it's their guy, and the Democrats accept it when it's their guy. If the shoe was on the other foot, if this was Barack Obama or Joe Biden or Bill Clinton demanding that U.S. companies pay a share of ownership to the federal government, I mean, these people would be losing their freaking minds more so than they are today on all the other things that they're supposedly reacting to protect the core, the homogenous whiteness and and storied history with no bad things like slavery or genocide against Native Americans or anything portrayed. We only talk about the good things. That's what these people are just. It's so corrupt. It's so wrong, and it's so transparent and naked. It just exposes them as weak, without principle, without any form of character, and they just say, "Oh yeah, no, yeah, look, but DEI, but the libs, but socialism," and
Right.
they are willing to accept everything that they've railed against. Reagan saying a government big enough to give you anything you want, and everything you want is big enough to take away everything you have. It's not the Democrats. It's not the left that has fueled and put that kind of big government on steroids. It's the Republicans. It's Donald
Right.
Trump. And and we should be very, very alarmed.
Yeah. One thing I've been really struck by is, I've been a longtime journalist, and so I noticed a clear split of Republicans who went along with Trump and those who didn't. And the ones who didn't were like you, where you were really committed to this idea of what conservative government was supposed to be and these ideas of the free market and of, upholding our allies and our friends in foreign policy and fighting for democracy. It was not a difficult choice for people like you who are really principled conservatives to say Donald Trump does not represent anything that I value. I can't go along with this. But yet, we've seen the Republican Party who used to use all of those talking points about, freedom in markets and freedom overseas, and they've just fallen into line for Donald Trump. And, these are the people who are not standing up when has gone into Los Angeles with troops, gone into Washington, D.C., and is now talking about going into, upward of 19 states. And, it seems like Chicago and Baltimore are next on the hit list. I mean, seeing troops on the street as you're trying to go about your business, go to work, take your kids on vacation to the Smithsonian's, that's not American freedom. That is something very different.
Well, and again, we're, the whole frog slowly boiling analogy is so apt here. When it happened in Los Angeles, there was an outrage, and you can only sustain it for so long. Now it's happening in Washington, D.C., and it's happening in these selectively targeted, politically motivated locations. But it's I think we've gotten far afield. The debate seems to be, well, Washington has a diminishing crime rate, so they shouldn't be doing this here. They shouldn't be doing this anywhere. There's no federal authority. This is lawless. This is beyond the scope of the federal government. And people would say, oh yeah, but they sent troops. They sent the National Guard into Alabama. When states defy the Constitution,
Right.
that is what has
Over
triggered the
over
incidents that you
Jim
have.
Crow
Right,
is
over
is
Jim
when
Crow.
that happened.
Right, not when the states following their own laws, not breaking federal laws or violating the Constitution, fall afoul of the whims and dictates of the ruler, not the chief executive, the chief administrator of the country, the ruler of the country, what he thinks should be right. That's what's going on here. The the under the auspices of an emergency, Donald
Right.
Trump is doing all of this stuff, whether it's tariffs or troops in the streets. It Every bit of it should be unacceptable to Americans who put the country, the Constitution, and the rule of law first. It's all bullshit. There is no emergency. You can look at,
Right.
Gavin Newsom with what he's doing on social media, first of all, is amazing. But in the last 48 or 72 hours, they're putting out all these little thumbnails about Arkansas has a murder rate 400% higher than Los Angeles County.
Mhm.
Look, Mike Johnson's district in Louisiana has a homicide rate 300% higher than California's. This has nothing to do with a crime emergency. It has
Right.
everything to do with Trump trying to flex his muscle, the muscle of the federal government, uh, feed red meat to the rubes, the Republicans who in their one breath will talk about freedom and liberty and patriotism and constitution and then cheer this, and not realize the idiocy of their hypocrisy. That's what's going on here. He's feeding the emotional quest for authoritarian strongman that his propaganda has built up on the right, and he is trampling the rule of law. And they're trying to put this thin veneer of, well, it's happened before. It happened in the 1960s when troops were sent in to Alabama or Mississippi, and it's something that we need to be very alarmed about. Chicago, we the whole idea of canceling elections, I think, is a misplaced fear. We're going to have elections. We've had elections even during the Civil War. Russia has elections. Totalitarian uh, regimes have elections. It's
Right.
just those elections are not free and fair. And
Right.
that's what's happening here, whether it's the
Yeah.
assault on voting rights and the mechanisms of voting, whether it's sending troops in to Milwaukee and Philadelphia and Phoenix and Tucson and Detroit next year during the
Right.
election. That's how we're going to have elections. It's whether or not they're free and fair within the context of American elections. And, some might say American elections haven't always been free and fair. And depending on the state you live in, that's absolutely 100% true. During the 100 years after the Civil War and
Right.
then some, we did not have free and fair elections in a number of southern states.
Right.
But
That's why we needed the Voting Rights Act.
Right, right, and that now is under assault. That's now under assault in the judiciary. The Voting Rights Act itself is going to be, uh, cases involving the Voting Rights Act are gonna be heard by the Supreme Court this upcoming fall term, and many expect that that's gonna be, eroded or obliterated from, the precedent that's gonna be altered in a way that Roe was by the Dobbs decision. And so all of these gains are being rolled back for the purposes of limiting who participates in our elections, who participates in our government, uh, steering the citizenry, flexing the muscle of this could happen to you if you don't fall into line, whether it's a private company or a
Mhm.
university or a law firm or a city or a state. If you don't follow the whims and vision of the ruler, not our
Mhm.
executive, the Smithsonian, the Baseball Hall of Fame, if you don't admit Roger Clemens into the Baseball
Right.
Hall of Fame, you're going to have a price to pay. Colorado, if you don't free Tina Peters, who was convicted under your state laws, bad things are going to happen to your state. That's not
Right.
American. That is
No.
not American freedom, and there's nothing patriotic, constitutional, or strong about this.
No.
This is authoritarianism 101, and
And
we need to start calling it out. And the media just will not do that. They go back to that Reuters headline that you started off with about corporate move, the battle between Democrats and Republicans on redistricting. No, I mean that's like the battle between Russia and Ukraine. There's an invader here. The invader is
right.
Texas. California is Ukraine. They're responding because democracy was attacked. And both sidesing this and ascribing equal blame to both sides is this the media is aiding and abetting, willingly or not. They're aiding and abetting this narrative from the Trump administration, normalizing what is going on, making the intolerable appear tolerable, and we should say no, enough.
Right. And I mean, just the vast array of things that Trump feels entitled to meddle in, I mean, would make socialists envious, really. I mean, I'm expecting probably within the next couple weeks with the Emmys coming up that he's going to be demanding some sort of lifetime achievement award or he'll shut the awards down. I mean, it's coming. Because he needs this constant adulation. But I think you made a really smart point in linking what's going on with these blue state invasions by the federal government, by the Trump administration, to the 2026 elections, because clearly it is with an eye to that. And that's why it was so important for Trump in his budget bill to have $175 billion for ICE for a private police force, because he is looking ahead. He's historically unpopular. The economy is slowing. He will not release the Epstein files as promised. He is looking for anything to shore up an advantage, which is why he put the pressure on Texas and said, "You find me those 5 new seats," just like in Georgia in 2020. "You find me those 11,000 votes. Find me 5 extra Republican seats because I know I'm unpopular and I don't want to lose the House next year." And you saw when Wes Moore, the governor of Maryland, responded over the weekend and said, "Hey, Gerrymandering, that's something we can do here in Maryland. And
Mm.
you saw Trump respond by threatening making baseless accusations on Westmore's military service. And that's when he said, fine, we'll go into Baltimore, because it's all about revenge. It's all about trying to put people in their place. But what you find is that when people stand up for Trump, he does not know what to do with it. That's
Mhm.
been the genius of the Lincoln Project for years, is because you know how to pop him right in the mouth, and bullies don't know how to handle that. And that's why I think Gavin Newsom has been so effective, because mockery is something that Trump just can't abide. And to me, I say more of it. That's what we
Mhm.
need.
Absolutely, and the Gavin Newsom is doing two things. He's punching the bully back in the mouth, and is what you need to do. But he's also exposing the idiocy, the lunacy of Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not a rational, sane actor in the sense that any of us would with clear eyes would say, yeah, this is a competent man. This is a man who is in control of his faculties, of the facts, of the truth. He's detached from reality, and the fact that Newsom is just mirroring, mimicking Donald Trump's style right down to just line for line, and it's causing the Sean Hannitys and everybody on Fox News and on right wing podcasts to lose their mind about how
They're clutching their
ridiculous.
pearls about
Oh yeah,
just the
it all
decorum.
right. But what it points out, it puts their nuts in a vice that they're saying nothing about Donald Trump doing exactly the same thing and doing it for the 10 years he's been in political public life. He's put out these absurd, ridiculous, incoherent, semi-literate statements, just lunacy, Newsom is doing that in reply, and throwing it every idiot iteration of communication that Donald Trump has done over the last 10 years, we're seeing served back hot from Newsom and his social media team, who are doing more to, I think, pop the balloon and the myth and the inevitability that it's just too big to fight. It's too strong. We can't stop it. They want to wear. That's a classic authoritarian move. They want to wear you down, grind you down, just through attrition, get people to tune out and give up. And Newsom is showing, look, they pulled back the curtain, and the great Oz is a weak, feeble, weirdly orange makeup with weird white makeup on his hands. Uh,
Yeah,
blending makeup is not a Trump's strong suit, that's for sure.
no,
But it exposed this weak, flabby, flaccid, impotent Donald Trump. That's what hides at the core of Donald Trump is a he knows he's stupid. He knows he hasn't done any. He knows this is a house of cards that's going to come crashing down around him. It's propped up on criminality and fiction and fantasy, and once it bursts, it's gonna pop quickly. It's not going to be slow, let the air out of the balloon. It's going to be a big pop. Donald Trump's going to disappear. Either his aorta is going to burst that way, or his mystique is going to pop that way. That still isn't
right,
going to take away the Trumpism in this the damage Trump has injected into our culture and our politics isn't going to disappear. That's going to be a long process. But Donald
right.
Trump's hold and sway, once that curtain is pulled back far enough, and you see that weak, feeble, stupid, illiterate, gibbering little man there, it's going to it's the fever will break at some point, and it will break in how the media covers this, and how that will help tremendously in how it is perceived, because right now they are still treating this after 10 years as somehow normal, and this is political, and critique is viewed through the prism of normal politics versus the abnormality, existential battle for the soul of America that we are in. And I'm not just talking about the vision, the ideology, the traditional left-right battle that has existed in normal times. This is beyond that, and we need to recognize that. We need to call it for what it is.
Right. And we also know that a lot of Trump's bravado and his desperation right now is because the one thing he does not want to talk about is releasing the Epstein files. And, I think that the Lincoln Project has a dead on that this is still a huge issue. This is one of the main reasons why Trump's numbers have taken such a dramatic slide. And, this is fundamental to what so many MAGA supporters want to see. They've always demanded for these files to be disclosed. And this is a huge broken promise for Trump, who had a long-standing relationship with Epstein. This was not, a secret. They were photographed together all the time. They had a close relationship. And, it begs a lot of questions about, where Trump is in these files. There's a reason why there are reports of 1,000 FBI, agents being, uh, you know, dispatched from fighting crime to, looking to see if the president's name appears in these files. I'm sure you saw over the weekend, Jeff, that, the Department of Justice has released at least some audio recordings of that just disgusting meeting between Todd Blanche, who is the Deputy Attorney General, Trump's former lawyer, and Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's partner, who is a convicted child sex trafficker. And of course, as we all know, following that meeting, Ghislaine Maxwell got transferred to a cushy club-fed prison in Texas where she gets to leave and do yoga. Well, meanwhile, all of these survivors have yet to see true justice. And I just wanted to note that next Wednesday, on September 3rd, there are more Epstein survivors who will be coming forward. They want to draw attention to the fact that their stories have not been talked about nearly enough in this controversy. And Lincoln Square and the Lincoln Project will be airing a special on September 3rd, focusing on survivors, and I'll be hosting that.
This whole Epstein thing, let's just a couple comments on that. Big picture, the reason it is a big issue for Trump is a trap of his own making. That in MAGA world, they're the ones who have pushed that narrative to their extremely radicalized, brainwashed base. As this is finally, we will get the truth on this. This is a big deal, and you will get the truth. This isn't something that just came out of nowhere, being pushed by Donald Trump's political enemies. This
Mhm.
was pushed by Donald Trump himself in his closest political allies. They
Right.
created this demand for the Epstein files, and
Yeah,
Trump's
and
about
and
face.
I can't help here but think of, like, that whole Scooby-Doo meme where at the end of each episode, they're looking to unmask the villain, and all of MAGA world is like, "We know it's the libs. They're the ones who have this evil pedophile ring," and you pull off the pillowcase, and it's really Donald Trump all along.
Yeah, and they're asking us. They're, the narrative coming out of this whole Ghislaine Maxwell rehabilitation effort that is, directed from the White House. We have 28 women who have credibly accused Donald Trump of assault, sexual assault over the period of time, long period of time.
Right.
None of them should be believed. It's all ridiculous. That's just hearsay. That's he said, he said. But now
28 times.
a convicted sex offender, not just sex trafficking, but the victims who testified at her trial claim that she participated in their rapes. This is the most notorious child rapist in the United States, maybe in United States history. She and Jeffrey Epstein, but we should believe what she says. Donald Trump is a gentleman. There you go. Yeah, she never saw him do anything bad.
Right.
There you go.
And she wants a pardon from
Of
him.
course,
I mean,
but
this is all
yeah.
choreographed.
Yeah, it defines credulity to say that she doesn't have motive to say whatever he is saying, that she's not gonna benefit from that. And if she goes out there and provides what supposedly exculpatory evidence about Donald Trump, we should take that as word. Here's the thing about Donald Trump. If the Epstein files that he's created this demand for implicated everyone he knows and loves except him. If it provided exculpatory evidence of what he would be blasting this to the public. He would never shut the fuck up about it ever. I'm
Absolutely.
innocent. I'm innocent. See, I'm
Right.
innocent. He if these files exonerated Donald Trump, we would see them. That simple. Occam's razor is
Absolutely.
the clear answer here. Nothing else explains it. Uh, the end.
Yep, you're absolutely correct. And so, we know exactly what's going on here. And, to your point about the coverage of Trump by the mainstream media, that's why I find what we do here at Lincoln Square to be so important because, we're not going to drop the Epstein story because we're afraid that he's not going to give us access. This is about the truth. This is about democracy. And this is about, not cowering in the face of the Trump administration. And that's something that we will never do at Lincoln Square. We'll never do at the Lincoln Project. And so I really appreciate all of you joining us this morning, all of you subscribing to Lincoln Square, because, it's this sort of independent journalism that we need in a time like this, that we need in a time where this administration is hell bent on us becoming a full authoritarian government like Hungary. It's having enough of a free press. It's having all of you be willing to stand up and say, that's not what America is, and we are not going to acquiesce.
Well,
And Jeff,
thank you.
I appreciate you being here to talk with us about all of this. And I so enjoy when you come and you host shows for us, whether it's on strategy session or with some of the interviews that you do. Today, we're going to be having Jasmine Burney Clark. She was Biden Harris campaign official in Florida. And she's going to talk with us about how Florida is the next fight for us to be looking at in terms of gerrymandering. And Jeff, I've always appreciated your candor on this issue because you have a lot of experience in redistricting in Michigan. You were a huge asset for the Republican Party and drawing maps. And so nobody knows this process more than you.
Yeah, well, I mean, sure. I mean, I've told folks here before, if you Google my name and redistricting or gerrymandering, you will find lots of things that will make you clutch your pearls. I am a reformed gerrymanderer. I recognize in kind of all else being equal, the damage and toxicity that gerrymandering has it introduced or perpetuated in our system by having primaries be the decider, not general elections. That being said, when you're in a war, you have to use unilateral disarmament. Tying an arm behind your back is not the way to fight. And what Texas did is provoked California to do what they're doing. Florida, Ohio, Missouri, Indiana, these other red states are looking at doing this too. I applaud Maryland. I applaud the folks in New York. If there's any way to squeeze more juice out of Illinois, anything in the meantime before 2026 to this Avengers Endgame battle that America is heading toward in November of 2026, we find out whether we go into the Thanos version of the future or stay on, or I guess get us back on the pre 2015 timeline here. That's what we need to do in the meantime. It doesn't need to satisfy everybody. People are saying, "Oh, yeah, it's just horrible." That a race to the bottom. Newsom, whether it's his tweets or gerrymandering, he's just doing what the Republicans are doing, and we can't be as bad as them. We have to be, or we can stand on our soapbox while they kick it out from under us with a noose around our neck.
Right. We can continue to write strongly worded letters or we can fight back. But that's the decision. And to me, there's really no question what we need to be doing. And you can see which one is more effective. Trump laughing at you as he bulldozes you all the way to authoritarianism, or they whine that, all of a sudden Gavin Newsom isn't being nice.
Exactly.
It's pretty clear, what the option is. I just wanted to highlight a few more things that we have coming up this week for you to look forward to on Lincoln Square. On my show, First Draft, on Wednesdays at 11, where I talk with journalists from across the country, I'll be talking with Jessica Valenti, who's a best-selling author on reproductive rights. She also writes on Substack. And then we have a new show that's debuting on Thursday from one of your favorites, Edwin Eisendrath, who also hosts a show in Chicago. This show is going to be called It's the Democracy Stupid, same as his Substack. And he'll be talking with somebody that Jeff and I know very well, Lavora Barnes, who ran the Michigan Democratic Party for years. And then on Friday, it is the triumphant return of Joe Trippi. He'll be taking your questions. So get those into us, because every Friday at noon, he and Alex are there to tell you exactly what the Democrats should be doing. And nobody knows more, because Joe's been doing this for decades and knows exactly what strategies the Democrats need to employ and what their pitfalls are. So I appreciate, Jeff, you coming and sharing this time with us today. Anything else that we can look forward to over on the Lincoln Project side coming up?
Well, you can always look for the Lincoln Project podcast wherever you get your podcast, whether it's YouTube or Apple Podcasts or Spotify or anything like that. You make sure to tune in to the breakdown Thursdays at 7 p.m. Where Rick Wilson and Maya May break it all down and tell you what's going on this week, kind of like Susan and I were doing this morning. So tune into those, follow the Lincoln Project on various social media. You probably already do if you're subscribing here, but if you don't, we're everywhere. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. I don't get TikTok, but that's where we are. Uh, so uh, look for us there. And thank you, Susan, and all that Lincoln Square is doing to help amplify the voices at the Lincoln Project, and so many other smart, good, clear voices in this fight for democracy.
Great. And thanks to all of you for joining us this morning.